everyone. Kate Berkner here today with Dr. Tom Phelan, author and creator of 123 Magic, as well as the author of The Manager Mom Epidemic. Dr. Phelan, welcome.
Good morning, Kate.
How are you today?
Doing pretty good. Spring is here. That's great.
Thank goodness. It definitely is very nice to see the sun shining outside. So today we are going to talk about a topic that's a little bit more stressful than spring, and that is ADHD and family stress. So, Dr. Phelan, I'm sure that if this is a topic that is of interest to you, you probably already know what ADHD is. But Dr. Phelan, could you quickly tell us what is ADHD?
Yeah, ADHD is a condition usually begins in childhood, and it's become famous in the last 20 years. It used to be nobody ever heard about it. And the core symptoms, you talk about kids who have difficulty paying attention and who can be rather impulsive, do things without thinking. And then one of the biggest ones was the hyperactivity. They often look like they're driven by a motor and just keep going and going and going and going. But another symptom that's often in there that is not in the diagnostic manual, and I think will be some year, is that, and this affects living with these kids, is what I call emotional over-arousal. To a child with ADHD, everything is a big deal. It can be bad, so they have, when they're upset, they have a temper tantrum about something. It can be good if they're excited, they're like super joyful and running around yelling and screaming and that kind of thing. And that is almost as hard to live with as the other symptoms. If you live with somebody who's like this all the time, it'll get to you after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to living with a child who has ADHD, there is a genetic component to ADHD, correct? So likely if a child has ADHD, at least one parent likely does as well, whether they've been diagnosed or not.
Yeah, it doesn't mean all the time, but if the child has ADHD, about a 50% chance of a parent having, the biological parent having the ADHD. If you have a sibling with ADHD, your chances go from 5 to 7% to 30% to have ADHD as well. And that makes, for another interesting dynamic, I've had parents say to me over the years, and other people say, well, if you got a parent with ADHD and a child with ADHD, at least they're on the same wavelength. They'll understand each other. False. It means that they'll knock heads with each other more frequently than they would otherwise, because the symptoms are, what we call an externalizing disorder, where you're often at odds with other people and blaming people for what's happening. If you have a parent like that and a child like that, it is not a good combination.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see Laura is joining us. Hi, Laura. And Laura noted that her daughter was diagnosed with ADHD and rejection sensitivity disorder, and the things that you described, those behaviors describe her daughter exactly.
Yep.
So, when we talk about kids having ADHD, potentially a parent having ADHD, what sort of impact can ADHD have on a marriage, on the relationship between adults in the house?
Well, as you can imagine, it's not good. And one of the sad statistics is there's a much higher divorce and separation rate among parents who have children with ADHD or other externalizing disorders like conduct disorder or oppositional defiant disorder and so on. Having a child that is stressful a good deal of the time is the opposite of how you got married. You got married by having fun and together, and you really enjoyed one another's company. That's how you fall in love. Not everybody falls in love before they get married, but you're having a good time. You really enjoy this person, and you get this child unexpectedly. This child enters your life, and they seem to be more stressed than they are fun. And so what happens is you get into wars like, who's screwing up this kid? Is it me or you? And you start arguing about how to handle things and all that, and it just adds a incredible amount of tension to the house, but also, as you were implying, to the relationship. And so you often get people splitting up more often when they have kids with ADHD.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about ways that parents can deal with that in just a minute, but also wanted to just address, how is this going to look or feel to a sibling in the house who doesn't have ADHD? So you've got one child who has ADHD and maybe you have a sibling that doesn't. what sort of impact is that going to have on that child and maybe on their stress level as well?
Yeah, you can think of two words when you think of siblings: abused and neglected. And what that means is that the sib will feel that they are often abused by by their brother or sister who has ADHD, and they'll often feel neglected by the parents. The ADHD child can be so demanding of attention that they just, the other sibling feels like they're always dealing with their brother or sister because they got a problem, or they're doing this or doing that, and so on. And then the sibling will also feel like, you're the mom and you're the dad. Why can't you control this kid? Why can't you keep him off of me? Why can't you keep him from stop doing this stuff to me all the time? Sibling rivalry with ADHD is terrible. And the non-ADHD sibling is going to see that the other child probably starts most of it. And so they feel very frustrated with their parents. And then the other thing which adds insult to injury is the non-ADHD sib will feel that the parents are continually making excuses for the child with ADHD.
So we've got a sibling who's stressed out. We've got parents who are stressed out. You've got a kid who's running around like they're driven by a motor. There's a lot of stress in the house. So what can we do to bring down the stress level in a home where you have an ADHD child and potentially a parent who has ADHD as well?
Well, the first thing the parents need to understand is that the most important part of treatment of ADHD is educating mom and dad about ADHD. So telling you how it works. So they have to change their level of expectations about the child because it's a different kind of child. And then they have to realize, okay, what works? Well, research tells us several things that work. One is behavior management, or parenting programs about how to manage ADHD can be very helpful. Another thing that works is medication. A lot of parents these days are, kind of, oh no, I don't want my child on medication. Well, just listen to the facts. Medication is very safe. It works very well. It cures nothing, but it certainly helps a whole lot. So parents need to understand the ADHD and the treatments for it. And then they need to work with somebody over the years, sort of like a team leader, I call them, to put these treatments into place, tune them up as time goes by, and so on.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about a parenting program that may be very helpful in just a moment here, but are there, outside of 123 Magic, which we'll talk about, what resources would you recommend for parents who need or want more education and learning around what ADHD is and kind of how to handle it?
Yeah, one of the best, of course, is we have two national support groups. One is CHADD, CHADD, it's Children and Adults with ADD, and it's chadd.org, chadd.org. Another is ADDA.org, ADDA. They may have changed that at add.org, but those are support groups. CHADD, probably the one that's been around the longest. So you can go on their site, you'll get good information about ADHD. You want to keep in mind that it's been estimated by a number of people that the amount of garbage information on the internet about ADHD is tremendous. And so you're going to have to kind of wind your way through all this stuff. But from CHADD, you won't get garbage. And also, I have a book called All About ADHD, and that's not garbage either.
Yes, good. I'm glad you mentioned the book. And the thing that Dr. Phelan frequently neglects to mention, but is true, is he's also been inducted into the CHADD Hall of Fame. So his resources are recognized and extremely helpful. So that All About ADHD is available on 123magic.com and wherever books are sold. And then, of course, you can check out the CHADD website and the ADDA website. So let's talk about 123 Magic, which obviously is a parenting program. You noted that having a plan and a parenting program in place can really help to manage ADHD kids. And, so does 123 Magic need to be used differently with children who are ADHD than is kind of written in the core book, or will it work as written?
Yeah, it'll work pretty much as written. You really need to be a professional parent if you have a child with ADHD. And so that means with 123 Magic, you have to think of two things. I really got to do this right. I got to learn the program. Don't start till you're ready. Make sure if there's two adults in the house, they're both on board before you start. Also keep in mind what we call the 30% rule. and that is your child with ADHD, take their age, take 30% off of it. So if they're 9, you get 6. If you have a child with ADHD who is 9, they have the emotional and behavioral maturity of a 6-year-old. So you're going to have to adjust the program some for that because of that fact. But you can use 1, 2, 3 Magic was developed with a large cohort of ADHD kids, not totally, but a large cohort of ADHD kids. So that's where it came from, personally and professionally.
Excellent. And can you just share with us what is it about the 1, 2, 3 Magic program that makes it so effective for kids with ADHD?
There are really a couple things. One is simplicity. I'm a clinical psychologist. I learned the hard way a long time ago doing parenting programs that if you don't keep it simple, nobody's going to do it. And the other, I think, great discovery of 1, 2, 3 Magic is the fact that parents talk too much. If you want to use nagging and reasoning and that kind of thing on a regular basis as your go-to strategy, and shoot from the hip, when things come up, you're just going to nag, or you're going to yell, or you're going to tantrum back, or all that. It's not going to work. So the ADHD kids, they'll get you talking, they'll get you yakking, they'll get you arguing, and you can't do that. They'll eat you alive.
Got it. Terrific. Well, thank you so much. Before we wrap up, Bernadette, who is joining us live, has noted that in the UK, there's kind of a lack of funding for support around ADHD. So do you have recommendations for what Bernadette and other UK-based parents can do, or where they should go to try to get the information and the support they might need?
Yeah, they really should contact an organization named ADDIS, ADDISS. It's ADD Information Systems. It's run by a woman named Andrea Bilbo. And I know Andrea's had some, with the COVID, they've run into some problems. In the UK, this is called a charity, which is like one of our 501c3s. But have them check out ADDISS and see what they can get from there. They do 1, 2, 3 Magic trainings there as well. And Andrea's been around for a long time and worked with ADHD for quite a while. So that's where you want to start. If they have trouble, they could write to me and I'll see what else I can come up with.
Okay, terrific. So Bernadette, I hope that helps. Dr. Phelan has given you a great resource in the UK. And of course, if you do have a challenge that you're not being able to address, feel free to go to 123magic.com, and at the very top of the website in the upper left-hand corner, there's a link you can click on that says Ask the Expert. You fill out that form, that question is going to get directly to Dr. Phelan, and he will answer you directly. So thank you, Dr. Phelan, so much for this. This has been so helpful.
Thanks, Kay.
Thank you for joining us today live. And if you are watching the replay, if you've not already, head on over to 123magic.com to get signed up for our newsletter. We send out parenting tips, free downloads, and more every week. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please feel free to tag them in the comments or to share this video with them. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.